Okay. There we go. All right. Let's get this podcast rolling. Now that I finished my daily standard housekeeping before each live stream. So once again, for whoever sees this first, just let me know if there's sound. I always appreciate it. And then if there's not, hopefully I can fix it before it becomes an issue. So yeah, for this podcast, originally I intended to do it with Gabby, but with the current frozen weather that's going on outside, we had to cancel it, so I decided I would just do another solo one. Hopefully we'll be coming back, though, next week, maybe at some point, or in the future, hopefully soon, maybe within the next 2 weeks, but I don't like to make promises that I might not be able to keep. Considering I'm pretty sure the last one of these I did was maybe a solid month ago, because it's January 31st now, and I'm pretty sure the last one happened on December 31st. I might be wrong about that. Okay. Yeah, there's 31 days in December. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure the last one happened on December 31st. So that's not the best track record, considering I want to try to do these somewhat more regularly. But anyways, let's get down to it. So yeah, self-worth is kind of a broad topic, but I'm going to give my thoughts and opinions on how it's impacted me, I guess, or how I thought that it's impacted me. The first way is through depression. So one reason that you might be feeling worthless or have issues with that is if you're dealing with depression. So kind of the thoughts that go along with that is obviously feeling worthless or feeling guilty about things, even if it's like not really your fault. And thoughts can be related to frequent self-criticism, self-blame, and a tendency to believe that others see you in a negative light. So all that can be related to self-worth or self-criticism. And then a person with clinical depression often has themes of hopelessness and helplessness. And I've experienced this just through my own depression. But some of the thoughts that can accompany that can be thinking that you're a failure, that everything is your fault. Thoughts like nobody loves me, or that you're worthless. I know for me, I've had a lot of those thoughts, at least when I've been depressed. And yeah, for me, oh yeah, sorry if the computer's shaking, I apologize too. Right now I'm coming at you. Sorry, I keep seeing my laptop move. And it's because I'm currently sitting cross-legged on my bed, and I took my hamper and I flipped that upside down, so my laptop is currently on top of my hamper. So it's a little bit of an interesting setup, but I didn't want to go downstairs because my dad's working outside of my bedroom. Anyways, that's a bit off topic. I tend to do that if you're new to these live streams or podcasts, whatever you want to call them. So yeah, for me, self-worth has always been closely tied with my depression. And regarding all of that, I would say a lot. I've talked about this before on these live streams, but a lot of it has always been performance-based. So for me, if I felt that I didn't perform well enough, a lot of that would then relate back to self-worth. As far as like performances go, that could be anything. It could be like an actual performance, like you're playing in front of a crowd, but it could just be like at a rehearsal, a jam session, like in a lesson with a professor. Sometimes it can even be a class or for like a grade and that sort of thing. Obviously, for like the classes and grades, those are a little bit more cut and dry just because you receive grades. But for performances, that can be like anything. So it could just be I don't want to say like all in your head, but sometimes you might have a performance that you feel really negative about, and it can become a self-worth issue. But you might have actually done very well. But if you're in a really depressed headspace or you have issues with that, then you'll never be able to recognize that you were doing well. So as far as the depression side of things go, for that you kind of have to go to therapy. So that's kind of one facet, if that's the word that I'm looking for self-worth. But I think another way that can be impacted, at least for me, because again, these are based off of my personal experiences, but I think that self-worth can also be impacted by loneliness. Just because humans are very social creatures, you've probably heard that get said a lot. I'm definitely not the first person to say that. Sorry, Andrew just messaged me, and the rest of our Facebook people. So anyways, as far as loneliness goes, sometimes you feel alone, and that can be impacted if you feel you don't necessarily have a choice in that. And feelings of loneliness can also just be caused by if you're lacking like attachments that maybe you've had in the past, you're facing changes in your life, your self-perceptions, or that you're unacceptable, unlovable, not worthwhile, even if others don't share those perceptions. So obviously that ties into the self-worth motif. That's the word I'm looking for. Just because, again, if you're having thoughts that you're unlovable or unacceptable, and that causes you not to seek out relationships with other people, then that's going to impact your self-worth. Like, again, with all of that, I think, again, for me at least, my self-worth has always been tied into depression and those feelings of loneliness. All of that has been tied together. Some water. Yeah, like I said before, every person needs to form relationships, whether they're mostly not friendships, but it can be other things. But everyone needs to form relationships, I think, in order to be happy. So if you feel lonely all the time, but then you're also depressed, that can prevent you from trying to like seek those relationships, which then in turn can impact your self-worth as well. So obviously there's some steps that you kind of have to go through to like solve that. So this goes back to the depression, but if your self-worth, if you think it's a symptom of depression, then obviously you have to treat the depression first, or at least try to. But that I always tell people to go to therapy. I think therapy is great. Just in my personal opinion, I don't think there's anything wrong with it or going to it. What I learned recently in that class I told everybody that I took, or at least some of my friends that I took, one of the issues they said with why people don't seek help is one, stigma. Two, it can be a cost thing. Is seeking things out or seeking help out, everyone's usually worried about the cost and like health insurance and that sort of thing. Since most of you guys are college students and you go to Elmhurst College, you get free therapy, so you might as well take advantage of that. And then if you're graduated, I know it can be a little bit harder to get the help that you need. But I always recommend just trying it or checking out your health insurance and seeing what's covered and what's not. I think under the Obama administration, there's some form of legislature that has mental health stuff covered, so you should be able to get therapy, but don't quote me on that because I'm not quite sure. But yeah, anyways, therapy can help a lot with self-worth, just for changing your thought processes and focusing more on the positives. Journaling is kind of a really popular thing. It was one of the things that my therapist pushed me to do. And there's a few different ways of going about it. One of the ways is with journaling. I don't want to say that you focus on the negative things, but let's say you're going about your day, you're not feeling that great. Whatever, you had like a bad social interaction with someone, or you think someone doesn't like you, or you had a bad performance and you're having like all these negative thoughts. So what you do is you write down whatever those negative thoughts are, and then you rip them up. The idea of that is it's supposed to be a way of like letting them go, or that they don't have power over you. For me, I found that didn't really work as well, because I would just focus more on the negative thoughts regardless if that was happening. And that was something I talked to my therapist about, just because I found going about it that way didn't really help that much. So I found focusing on positive things can help reaffirm your self-worth. So with that, and again, I talked to him, again, this was done through therapy, but focusing on the positive messages that you receive from other people, and those can be anything. It could be a compliment, someone telling you that they like playing with you, or you get a gig and you ask them to play on it and they say yes. Professors saying that you're doing well. It can be anything. Somebody just saying hello or smiling. And focusing on all those things can help take away from the depression and boost your self-worth. However, I also have some examples too. I don't journal too much by any means. I'm not a super dedicated person. That's a good way to put it. But some examples of some more positive journaling ones. Okay, so like this one, what you'd write about, like the prompt is, today my victories were blank, and you would write all those down or describe them. Or like this one, describe your biggest accomplishment and why it means so much to you. Write down a difficult time in your life that you overcame. Name 5 moments when you were ecstatically happy. This week, I'm looking forward to these 3 things. Describe a situation where everything worked out for you. What was the best compliment you ever received? What is the most unique thing about you? So those are kind of all examples of what more positive journaling prompts would be. And they would kind of be the ones that I would go to, because again, for me, if I focus on like the negative ones, I think I marked one somewhere down here, hopefully. If I do the negative ones, I find, for me personally, I find that they don't help. For other people, I'm sure it works out great. So you kind of have to discover it for yourself if you want to try that. One thing is, though, I would say when I was severely depressed, even the journaling prompts that like focused on self-worth or like positive aspects, I wasn't really able to do them just because I was so depressed that it was almost impossible to. So yeah, that goes along with journaling. And then I've kind of talked about this before too, but as far as performance self-worth goes, I just kind of had to train myself out of it. I don't really have too much of another word for it. And by that I mean it goes more along the lines of being severely depressed, I think, or like getting away from that and playing, or at least so that they're not associated with each other anymore. So I would say like now when I play and I'm unhappy with a performance, it's still a problem, so to speak. Like everyone is self-critical of themselves, but I would say it's more of a normal problem. Like I might be upset or like mad about myself, but at least now I don't really have the issue of going into a performance situation and it automatically meaning that it's a reflection of my self-worth regardless of how it is. I said this earlier in this podcast, but if it's a really good experience, and I play really well, I might still think that like I'm worthless, and my head might just automatically make it a negative experience. Or it could just be a negative experience, and I could just think it's a negative experience. Um, so yeah, I had to kind of, for me, again, I've talked about this before, but I kind of had to train my head out of that mind frame or mindset. And it's hard to do. But again, I did it mostly through therapy and like talking with a professional. So there's always going to be that side of it. But outside of that, I find reaffirming all the positive messages that you receive can be really useful and really helpful. And again, that can be from anyone, you know. For the most part, I would say if you're in like lessons or like playing with other musicians, whether they're giving you compliments out loud or if it's just the action of them wanting to play with you, those all just reaffirm like your own worth, you know, because they're all like supporting you and they all want to play with you. So hopefully that makes sense. I also noticed Andrew dropped a comment that I kind of wanted to check out because I can only see the very top of it before I continue moving on. Okay. Well, I can't quite see all of that, Andrew, because my phone goes kind of crazy. Or, sorry, not my phone, my computer goes kind of crazy with the comments. Sometimes they work out well for reading, and sometimes they don't, or like gets cut off. Oh, geez. Well, that's the live stream. Okay, this is what Andrew said. So if you see Andrew's comment, obviously I can't watch it now. Andrew just said this interview I was recommend also covers this topic, and it has some awesome insights from someone who has both gone through depression and now helps people with it. Okay, well, I can't look at it right now, obviously, but I'll definitely check it out later. So thank you, Andrew. Thank you for stopping by and leaving a comment, as always. And anyone else who's watching this, I would check it out too if Andrew recommends it. So yeah, again, if you're watching this, always leave your comments and stuff because I like hearing from people. Feel free to ask any questions. I will try to help, but might not actually succeed in doing that. So, but yes, definitely check out that interview you just dropped. So yeah, reaffirming your positive messages that you just get from other people, you know. And again, it can be anything. If you bring in a new chart and people like playing it, if you're going into be a performance major, I know like one very just like obvious self-worth thing, if that's a good way to put it. You know, if you're a younger freshman person and you're kind of trying to figure out your major a little bit, you might be nervous about going into like performance or like jazz studies or whatever. I know for me, when I was switching my major over, I talked to Mike about it, and this was when I was a freshman, and you know, it was never a question of, you know, when I expressed an interest in doing that or switching my major out of music ed, you know, it was never a question of, oh, you shouldn't do that. Like, you shouldn't try to be like a normal, like, just like a musician. Like, you're not good enough to do that. And I'm not saying like music ed is a bad major either. That takes an entirely different set of skills. And I met with Ross Kellen too at that time. And if I wanted to go into music ed, he was also very supportive of that. Like both Mike Pinto and Ross Kellen. I think I might have maybe talked to Doug Beach about it too. Like all three of them were just like very supportive regardless of what I wanted to do. They just wanted to help me figure that out, whether if it was music ed or performance, you know, or whatever. And that can go for like any of your majors too. Is that's just like a very, I want to say like subconscious support. But anyways, like anyone I talked to that was like more experienced, they never told me like not to do anything, or they never said like I wasn't good enough to do something that I wanted to do. So I think that's always a good perspective to take. I know for our non-music major friends here and non-musician people, again, that can also go to any of your majors, you know, whatever you're trying to do. the most part, your parents or professors or friends, like, they're never going to tell you, like, not to go for something, you know. If there's an internship that you want to get or you think it'll be, like, a really good experience, they're all going to tell you to, like, go for it and, like, try for it. They're never going to tell you that you can't do it or that you're not good enough to do it. There's always the possibility that you might not get it, but that's not a reflection of you or your self-worth. So I think that's always a good mindset to have. That's a little bit unrelated. Well, no, it's not unrelated. But it's a way of, like, receiving those positive messages. Again, for everyone who has just joined that I can see in my chat, always feel free to drop any comments that you have or thoughts. I like seeing them, and it helps the streams go a little bit longer, and I enjoy interacting with people. Let me see. Oh, yeah. So this is going to go back into kind of the performance side of things again, or at least stuff that has happened recently. And since the last podcast I did was over a month ago, I know that I definitely haven't talked about this stuff yet. Actually, I might have, maybe. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure I haven't, though, because it was at least within, like, the last week that this relates to. Okay. So yeah, this kind of goes along with performance and having a specific mindset. So in one of the ensembles that I'm in, I've definitely talked about it before. I don't think this specific experience, anyways, in one of the ensembles I'm in, there's this tune we're playing, and it's called Famine Exit Sonnet, or we were playing it. Those of you who have gone to the Gretsch concerts know what I'm talking about. Anyways, this was a super stressful tune for me. It's another Paul Mutzenberg tune. It's not as, I don't want to say it's not. I mean, I think all of his music is hard, just in my own personal opinion. It's not as difficult as those Renegades tunes we've been posting up have been. It's a different type of difficult. Anyways, point of the story is I was soloing on it. And originally Mike didn't ask me to, and then for me, I'm in a headspace now where to get better in rehearsals, it's not an issue of self-worth for me anymore to, like, ask my professors if I can play over something for, like, practice, even if I know I'm going to be terrible at it. So anyways, I asked Mike if I could solo over Famine Exit Sonnet. I don't have the sheet music with me, but anyways, the solo section is, like, weird bar phrases. It's like 5 bar phrases, so it's already, like, awkward. I think the last part of it is longer than a 5 bar phrase. Maybe it's 10, I can't quite remember. Anyways, so it's already weird to begin with. And I had a very difficult relationship with this song. Where I was trying to solo over it, but I hated the way it was sounding and the way I sounded over it, and it was definitely becoming a self-worth thing. As we kind of, like, got closer to, like, the concert date, like, he kept having me solo over it, and, like, I did not like the way I sounded at all. And after, like, one of the times I played it, I, like, started crying during rehearsal, which I haven't done in a while. Yeah, so that happened. It was very stressful. And it wasn't that I wasn't practicing it, because I was practicing it, believe me. I just didn't like anything that I was playing over it, and I brought it into lessons with Neil and Mike a couple times, and I just, like, did not like the way I sounded over it. I, like, tried playing it with, like, my bandmates a couple times. I, like, still didn't like the way I sounded over it, and it was definitely becoming a self-worth thing. But anyways, like, the night of the concert, I was starting to get, like, depressed because I didn't know what I was soloing over, and I think that might have been the only one, and I was in a bad headspace. So, like, before it was actually, like, the concert, or it was the concert night, it was just, like, a few hours before, like, an hour before, something like that. I went to Mike's office, and we had, like, another little powwow about that tune again. And I think I said, like, I didn't want to play over it, or I was just like, well, I can't have, like, Parker or Vinny play on it. I'm like, they're both gonna sound like killer, and it's gonna be great. Like they do it, and I don't do it. And he's just like, well, yes. He's just like, I know Parker and Vinny are gonna sound really good over, and he's like, but I think you sound good over it too. And he's like, and I also want to have people play over songs that are going to be like really challenging to them. And Mike really wanted me to do it, and he kept pushing me to do it. So I was in a bad headspace, but I was also feeling depressed because if I didn't do it, I didn't know what else I would be soloing over, or if I would even be soloing at all during that concert. So I decided that I was going to do it. We had a powwow for it. I think we said we'd just do one course because I was paranoid about not being able to like make it through two, or that it was going to be really bad or something, and I'd like want to get out of it. Anyways, this has become a long-winded story. But anyways, basically what happened is, this ties in with another experience too. But I had taken before this, I'd taken some lessons with Chris Siebold. He was much more confident in his playing. And he's also an extremely good and talented player as well. And I remember, and I love these quotes too, I still remember them. Basically over that song is I just decided that, what's a good way to phrase this without like swearing? Basically that I wasn't gonna, no, I can't really say it without swearing, but basically that I wasn't gonna give a fuck about it anymore. Not like the process, like I didn't care, I didn't want it to like sound good, but I wasn't gonna like be paranoid about that anymore. So anyways, the song ended up going really well, or people really liked it, and it was because like at that point, once we got to the concert, I decided that I just like was not going to care when I played it. Like I was just gonna go for it, which is basically what Chris Siebold does whenever he's played. So I decided I was just gonna channel my inner Chris Siebold, and that's what I do over that song. So it ended up going really well. People really liked it. I really liked it too, just because again, I think that was the first time that I actually played with it really confidently, or played over it really confidently. And then last Friday we just did a recording session for it. I don't like my solos much over it for that, but I was asking Mike if I was going to get 2 or 1 choruses over it. I hadn't soloed it in a while, and it was still like a stressful tune. So me and Mike had another powwow for it. And I asked him, personally on the inside, I really wanted to have like 2 choruses. And Mike kind of said that too. He's like, last time we played it, he's just like, you just took 1. It's like, what felt like you wanted to have 2. So he's like, for the recording session, we'll just see how it goes. And once we got to the recording session, I just did the same thing again, which is channel my inner Chris Siebold. And I took 2 courses, and I think it went well. There's one part I didn't like about it, but overall I think it went really well. People said I sounded really good over it. Cole said I sounded really good over it, so that made me happy. I used pedals on it, and that was kind of stressful, and it kind of messed me up a little bit. So yeah, that's kind of been an impact of like just going for things. But both of those times, both of the experiences like started to be like a self-worth issue. But I kind of cut through that. It was more to the point like I really wanted to sound good on it, and like I knew that I could. It was just like getting mad, or like finally letting go. And then that playing experience kind of ties in with another one too. For the last jam session I went to, the first tune I played over, I had some technical difficulties during. Yeah, I had some technical difficulties during it. Fortunately, Kenny was there, and he like kind of fixed it. We're not really sure what happened, but he fixed it, and that's all that matters. At least in my mind, he fixed it. But sometimes, like when that happens, or you're having issues on the stage, it's easy to like start getting tentative immediately. And on that tune, he was just like, start playing, and he like fixed it, and like the sound kicked back on. I just started going for it, because like my first thought wasn't like paranoid or like, oh god, I don't sound good. It was like, I I have to start soloing as fast as possible because I want to play over this tune. Or I was just like, we need to go now. And I remember before he walked away, I heard him just say, while I was like going into like a line, just said like, get it or something. I just jumped right into it. Flip side of the story is I might have been in the wrong part of the form, but that's a completely different story. But yeah, and then after that, after we played that tune, I stayed up for a second one because again, I wasn't happy with that first one just because there was sound issues and that kind of messed me up a little bit. But the point of that being is even though after that first tune, in years past, it might have been a self-worth thing where I would have immediately quit after that first tune, but I wanted to play a second one because I knew that I could do better and that I could be better and that I wanted to be better. And it wasn't any matter of like self-worth. Hopefully that makes sense. I know that Kenny commented on it too or whatever, that it's always important to play more than one tune, even if you don't want to. And then some more quotes that kind of tie in with that. Again, with playing, if you're like a musician. Again, one of the things one of my mentors told me, or Chris told me, was that he really appreciates my sensitivity as a person and all the mental health stuff that I do, but in my playing that I need to cut that sensitive crap out of my playing right now, which is true. You know, if you go into a situation being really anxious and tentative and sensitive, then your playing will reflect that, and it would never sound good. Or if your playing is always a self-worth thing and you're always judging your self-worth thing. Another thing he said, for him, if he was constantly analyzing himself like the way I do, like he would be dead, which is like true. Like if you're a musician or just for whatever you're doing and you're constantly evaluating yourself like that, especially if it ties in with like depression, and that other stuff, that can be a really negative experience, and it shouldn't be if you're a musician. It should bring you like happiness and you should enjoy doing that. So I think that was very eye-opening. And again, his other famous quote from that too was, when you solo, you should sound like you're kicking doors down. And whether or not you actually sound like that or not, I think it just means, going into a situation just being really confident, or like not necessarily caring about the opinions of like the audience or other people, or like worrying about what they're thinking. So those are all my favorite quotes now. So sometimes when I'm in a really anxious, kind of stressful performance situation, I just channel my inner Chris Siebold, and everything works out really well now. For the most part, not always, but when I'm able to do that, I get put into a different headspace. And something else too, going along with self-worth or self-confidence, and I guess being, kind of goes back to that social thing a little bit too, which I'll get into. But sometimes you just kind of need to get out and do things. I don't mean that in a bad way, where sometimes one of the criticisms for mental health and that sort of thing, it's a good way to put this. So like the quote, like, you just need to get out and do things, that can have like a negative connotation because it means it dismisses the mental health stuff, or if you're experiencing depression or anxiety. Obviously, telling someone you just need to get out and do things is like a bad response or comment to make. So I don't mean it like that. So if you're experiencing depression and all that other stuff, I don't mean like that. Obviously, you need to like seek help so that you can get out and do things, because that's preventing you from doing that. But if you're not depressed or you're not dealing with mental health stuff, a good way to build self-confidence, and it's hard for everyone, is just to get out and do things. So with that, if you're feeling, if you're feeling like lonely, or if you're feeling like you don't have a community, I always like tell people too, and just in like group therapy that I've gone to, I always support people where I'm like, good way to think about it is if you don't reach out to anyone, nobody is going to reach out to you. Sometimes that, everyone has different sides where they just want people to reach out to them, but you have to be willing to like get out there, and that can be anything. It can be going to jam sessions and forming connections through that. It can be like hustling gigs or like going to clubs or just like anything interesting that you see, or like putting things together like events or pursuing like your goals and stuff. So yeah, that's kind of what I mean by that. And usually it comes from the mindset where you just become so fed up with something that you just kind of go and do it. Yeah, so that's a good way. I think that might be a good way to put it. Because I've had that happen like throughout my life. Because again, when I've been very depressed and had like a lot of issues with like self-worth, obviously I wasn't able to do that until I got help. But once I did, and you're feeling like bad or like down about something, then you can start pursuing it more actively when you're in a good headspace. So sometimes you just have to force yourself to do things, even if you're a little bit nervous. I promise it'll be worth it. I'm going to sip on some more water and then read some of these comments. What did Alvin say? Alvin said he has to write a Euro paper before tomorrow. So he has to go, but he likes that I do these and that they're important work. Well, I'm glad that you like it too, Alvin. If it makes you feel any better, I took an online final this morning because Elmhurst was just finishing up their J-term classes. And we got completely messed up with the polar vortex, freezing cold temperatures or whatever. So I'm sure everyone that's taking a class right now, your professors are probably frantically scrambling, trying to figure out how to do finals. So I did the last of my classwork for that all of this morning before I go back to my actual classes starting next week. So I understand that. And then Peter Joseph, oh yeah, and good luck on your paper too. Things get better in college. I'll leave it at that as far as schoolwork goes, I think. Once you get past all of the annoying gen eds, which I've actually found, not always, but a lot of them are easier, I think, than some high school classes. And Peter Joseph said, oh man, I'm glad to finally catch one of these. This is such a great page that you started. Well, I'm glad that you like it too. Thank you for commenting. I like it when people comment always. I like the interaction. It helps me take a break too, so I'm not just constantly rambling the whole time. We're kind of getting towards the end of my note page, so to speak. So yeah, so this is kind of the last part of it. So if you have anything you want to say, you want to interact with me before I end the live stream, I'd recommend doing that now. While I go into kind of the last part with self-worth and kind of what I'm currently dealing with, just because a lot of, I guess with like loneliness and like depression and performance, all that has been tied into my self-worth, as I've said before. But to a certain extent, I've gotten past that depression. It's been, again, through therapy and journaling and learning like positive coping strategies. That's kind of how I was able to solve that for the most part. Loneliness, once I, again, dealt with my depression, I'm aware of the fact that I'm a very social person, that I need social interaction with others. So for me, it was pursuing stuff like that and like getting out and going out into different situations. So that kind of solved the loneliness part. And then again, for performance, it was, again, dealing with like the depression and mental health stuff and kind of making that area better. Again, going into situations that make me uncomfortable and realizing that self-worth isn't tied to performance. So that's all that stuff. So I guess where I stand with it now and the problems I have with self-worth currently. So right now I would say my biggest issue with self-worth has been weight-related or weight problems. I've talked about this a few times on social media and with other people. So for me, with weight, I'm about 5'7", and I used to weigh around like 150 pounds. And then I was able to lose that weight so that I was all the way down to 120 pounds. So when I lost all that weight, one, I liked the way I looked, but two, I also had a lot of people tell me, you look so great now, or you look so good. And that's what all people do, you know. You notice people lose weight, and you say that they look really good, which is good. I think it's good that I lost weight. I needed to. I definitely did to change some things, but it's also become a self-worth thing, because I think I have to maintain that really low weight. And it hasn't always been healthy, because I would skip meals and eat really small portion sizes. So I was all the way down at 120, and so far I've moved back up. So I kind of fluctuate around 128 to 130. And with that, I'm eating normal meals now, and I eat regularly, but it's an issue of self-worth because I feel like I weigh too much, or that I need to lose weight, or that I need, or in my head I have thoughts throughout the day where I'm just like, okay, I'm not going to eat for the rest of today, so that like my weight will drop. That has definitely been an issue, just regarding all of that and trying to deal with that in a positive way. So yeah, I've definitely been dealing with issues with that. That's kind of a separate podcast live stream. I'm going to save that for a different point in time. We're going more in depth with that. Needless to say, it's been an issue with like self-worth, or it's like impacted me to where I haven't wanted to go out if I think that I weigh too much. So yeah, I'm definitely trying to deal with that. It's still an ongoing problem, so I can't really say too much about that. It's still something that I'm learning to deal with, but once I do learn to deal with it and am happy with it to a certain extent, I'll probably do a full podcast on the topic, just because it's something that matters to me. So that's been one part of my self-worth issues. And then recently, within the last few weeks, and this might have to do with like seasonal depression or being like inside or like not out in the sun, which is a thing. For the last few weeks, I've had issues where in my head I feel like I'm letting everyone down, if that's a good way to put it. It could just be, it hasn't been like serious or like over the top or anything. It's been pretty mild, but it's just been like self-worth generally with like my like normal goals, whether it's like work for like my internship, or like hustling gigs and like being in charge of like band leading, socializing, having everything ready to go when I get back to school. Anyways, it's kind of like a weird ongoing problem. It's all like mild things. It's not like over the top, but it makes me like not want to do work. Or again, I just have these like weird feelings of letting people down, even though I know that I'm not, you know. Yeah, it's kind of a weird thing that I've been dealing with. I don't really know how to describe it. It's pretty mild, but it's definitely had impacts on certain things in my life. So yeah, I guess to like cap it off too is, as far as like self-worth goes, is honestly it can be related to anything, you know. I think, and I hope this podcast has kind of showed that a little bit. You know, if you're struggling with your relationships, it could be in relation to that. It could be your grades or your performances if you're like a perfectionist, you know, and you're constantly putting yourself up to these really high standards that you can't meet. It can be a symptom of depression. Or, you know, again, like I said, like anything, getting more sleep, internship stuff, work, anything. So yeah, that's kind of, I want to like leave it off on a positive note though. Yeah, so anyways, as far as self-worth goes, my advice, again, I talked about a little bit, but if it's a symptom of depression, definitely go to therapy. There isn't anything wrong with that. I think it's a good thing to do, and if you go to college, then you probably have the free resources too. So I always recommend doing that. And then if you're having self-worth issues because you're not gigging enough or like not playing enough, or it's like a goal-related thing that you can accomplish, then start trying to like pursue that if you can. I think that's like a good way to put it. Just like actively pursue it and start pursuing it and like putting yourself out there, because it will build your self-confidence. And again, you have to remember that you always have the support of your professors and friends and peers when you do stuff like that too. Just because like everyone wants you to succeed and all your friends want you to succeed. Sometimes if you get caught up into your own head, you don't always see that. I think that's where I'll leave it for today. I think that was a good, nice podcast discussion. Again, this last comment. Oh yeah, so if you're watching this and if you have anything else you want to say, feel free to do that while I read this. So yeah, from Peter again, that's really great. You've actually gone to therapy and seeked help. Not many people are self-aware enough to actually commit to that. Oh, and I'd love to talk to you sometime about all this. Okay. Hi, Peter. Yes, please feel free to reach out to me. Again, I'm not like a professional by any means. I enjoy talking about my experiences and stuff because I know that they help people, because I know that they help people, or people have messaged me telling me that I've helped them through these, which is why I like doing them. But again, I'm not a professional by any means. So I can just give you good advice from an experienced person that has gone through some of this stuff. To be fair, though, when I first went to therapy, it was not of my own will, but that was because I was in a very bad place. Now I'm in a good place. So I think it's a really important and good thing to do for a lot of different reasons. And even in my own life, there'll be certain points where I wanted to like go back to it, or I thought I should like go back to it, just because I think I should. And at least with how I've been feeling within recent weeks, I've kind of wanted to. It just hasn't happened yet, and it's not been like a major issue by any means. So yeah, if you have any questions, just anybody that's watched this, you're always welcome to reach out to me. If you watch this post stream, you should definitely still leave your comments and let me know what you thought. If you're not comfortable with leaving a public comment, you can always message me. I like seeing messages, and I try to respond to all of them. Or if you see me in person, you can always let me know your thoughts as well. Otherwise, good luck to everyone that's dealing with the colder weather. Hopefully, you're all free from your work obligations and school obligations. Yeah, and good luck to everyone that's soon to be starting their semesters or is getting back to school. Bye.